Merry meet and welcome to Thrilling Thursday here at Ariel's Corner. This is Ariel Gatoga and we are streaming live on YouTube. And moderating today on YouTube are the lovely, it's kind of changed. I think it's the lovely Minerva, the lovely I Am Her Eminence, and the lovely Heather. Actually, I think it's the lovely Minerva, the lovely I Am Her Eminence, and the lovely Dre. But all of you, thank you so much for being here and moderating for us. And thank you to everybody for joining us. I hope you're having a wonderful day. And if you haven't done so already, please make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell. And that way we get that algorithm to give us a little bit of love sometimes. And let's see, what else was I going to tell you? We have our website is at arielscorner.com, arielscorner.com, and that's where you can go get all your stuff. So check it out, arielscorner.com. Everything's free over there. And our podcast hub you can find at arielspodcasts.com, arielspodcasts.com. We have a shop at arielscornershop.com, arielscornershop.com, and you'll notice in the main menu of our shop, we have a couple new links. One is the link to our Amazon affiliate site, which I forgot we had. So there's the beginnings of some tools and things like that there. So it's not just t-shirts and mugs now. You can also go into our Amazon site and see a few things, including books from my recommended reading list are all listed in there as well. Also, we have the Oracle of Asherah cards available through that shop as well, so that you can see the link to that on there. So my free booklet, How to Work the Oracle of Asherah, has some accompanying cards, in case you didn't know. So if you don't feel like making your own Asherah Oracle stones, you can get a deck of cards. Okay, did I forget something? Oh yeah, we have a premiere. We have a premiere today at 11 a.m. in just 40 minutes from now, so I hope you can join us for that. And we should have, we'll definitely have a premiere on Saturday. I'm working hard to get a premiere for tomorrow as well, as long as I don't run out of time today. If not, if we don't get it tomorrow, we'll get it another day. I guess that's it. If you have any questions for me, you can put them right in the chat thread. I will hopefully not go too long. We have to be off in time for the premiere, so I'll keep my eyes on the clock. Because today I want to at least get through the first book of the Book of Enoch on Thrilling Thursday, and then we'll reassess. But that way we can get through the first book. It's not too long. It's not too big of a commitment. And then we'll go from there. I don't know. There's all kinds of ways we can do it. If it's not enough to bog down Thrilling Thursday every week with it, I can do them on my own and upload them and do other things on Thrilling Thursday. I don't know exactly how we're doing it yet, but we will definitely get through the first book. So that'll probably take us another week or two after today. Okay, let's get going. If you are in a place where it is safe and appropriate, please close your eyes and begin to take some nice, long, deep, slow, relaxing breaths in through your nose and out through your mouth. With every inhale, feel more peace and light entering your body and mind. With each exhale, let go of the tension in your body, along with anything in your mind you do not want. Inhaling peace, and relaxing and letting go as you exhale. We picture ourselves on top of a beautiful mountain, in the center of a circular grove of trees. In the center of our grove is a bonfire, which blazes forth and lights us and the grove with a sacred golden light. This is the light of perfect love and perfect trust. It easily and efficiently burns away everything unlike itself, leaving us safe and serene. Into this sacred space, we invoke the presence of our Creator. To many of us, our Creator reveals themselves to be a mother and father, a goddess and God. We also call upon our angels, our guides, and our teachers. We ask that we be guided as we walk upon the way and become happier, wiser, more magical, more peaceful, and more loving people. Blessed be. We are on chapter 3 of the book of Enoch, book number 1. Chapter 3, the fallen angels. So I'm going to just go ahead and read the whole chapter, and then we'll go back and discuss each verse in turn. And it happened that when the children of men multiplied, in those days beautiful daughters were born to them. And the angels, the children of heaven, saw and lusted after them, and said to one another, Come, let us choose wives for ourselves from among the children of men, and have children with them. And Semyaza, who was their leader, said to them, I fear you will not actually agree to do this deed, and I alone will have to pay the penalty for a great sin. And they all responded to him and said, Let us all swear an oath and bind ourselves with mutual curses not to abandon this plan, but to carry it out. Then they all swore together and bound themselves by mutual curses. There were 200 of them in total, and they descended in the days of Jared on the summit of Mount Hermon. They called it Mount Hermon because they swore and bound themselves with mutual curses there. And these are the names of their leaders. Semlazaz, their leader. I can't see if I can say these names. Araklba, Ramiel, Kokol, God, I can't do these angels' names. Kokoblel, Tomlel, Romlel, Donnel, Ezequiel, Barakiel, Asael, Armaros, Batarel, Ananel, Zaklel, Samsapael, Satarel, Turel, Jomjael, Sariel. Whew. These were their chiefs of tens. The naming of, where am I? Oh yeah, here we go. And all the others with them took wives for themselves, each choosing one, and they began to unite with them and defile themselves with them. And they taught them enchantments, the cutting of roots, and introduced them to plants. And the women became pregnant and gave birth to great giants, whose height was 3,000 cubits. These giants consumed all of mankind's resources. When men could no longer sustain them, the giants turned against them and started devouring humanity. They also began to sin against birds, beasts, reptiles, and fish, and to eat one another's flesh and to drink the blood. Then the earth brought accusations against the lawless ones. And Azazel taught men to make swords, knives, shields, breastplates, and revealed to them the metals of the earth and how to work them, along with bracelets, ornaments, and the use of antimony, the beautifying of eyelids, all kinds of precious stones, and all coloring agents. And much godlessness arose, and they committed fornication, became led astray, and corrupted themselves in all their ways. Semyaza taught enchantments and root cutting. Armaros taught how to resolve enchantments. Barakijal taught astrology. Kokabel taught constellations. Ezekiel taught the knowledge of clouds. Arakiel taught the signs of the earth. Shamsiel taught the signs of the sun, and Sariel taught the course of the moon. And as men perished, they cried out, and their cries and their cries reached heaven. Okay, those are some tough names, but that's okay. Here we go. Let's get through this. So the first verse, and it happened that when the children of men multiplied, in those days beautiful daughters were born to them. This is a symbol of the proliferation of human consciousness, how thought creates and expands, and the beauty of our thoughts. Now, when we are talking in terms of gender in this book from a magical point of view, we're talking about the Hermetic principle of gender, not actual women on the earth, but the receptiveness of our own consciousness and the interaction of our intention to the womb of creation that is within our mind, and the tendency of the mind to expand, the tendency of thought to expand. And this is the mystery, the mystery that thought expands, as to why people say you get what you give multiplied. What you put out comes back times 9, or whatever they say. Or in that Wicca, what is it? The Wiccan Rede. They talk about how you don't want to do harm to others because it's going to come back to you multiplied. So the children of men multiplying represents the birth of creativity, the birth of beauty, and the possibility within the material world for manifestation of a very high order. That's what we were gifted with our minds. Okay, the second verse, the angels, the children of heaven, saw and lusted after them and said to one another, "Come, let us choose wives for ourselves from among the children of men and have children with them." So the idea of an angel lusting after a mortal is a symbol of how we use our own creativity against ourselves. Our creativity is a good thing, but the ego mind is the carving out of a separate identity and using that creativity to give us an illusion that we're separate, to give us the illusion of evil, to give us problems rather than to create in the way that the infinite creates. So don't think in terms of these angels being something that happened a long time ago outside of the atmosphere of the earth, but as something that we are contending with at all times. The idea of angels lusting after the women of the earth. Okay, and Semyaza, who was their leader, said to them, "I fear you will not actually agree to do this deed, and I alone will have to pay a great penalty for sin." And so this hesitation represents the awareness of consequences when higher consciousness chooses to use its powers for nefarious ends. So the penalty for a great sin is the risk of spiritual fall. Understanding that what they are wanting to do is they already know it's going to not end well, and yet they do it anyway. And that is our tendency. That is our tendency as ego minds, to know full well that what we are out to accomplish is not going to have a good end, but we're going to do it anyway, because we've convinced ourselves that ego lusts are worth the pain that we are causing ourselves. And they all responded to him and said, "Let us all swear an oath and bind ourselves with mutual curses not to abandon this plan, but to carry it out." So this collective oath signifies the binding of mental and spiritual forces to the material plane through the intention of our will. It's pulling our resources together to reinforce a lie, to reinforce the idea of separation. Mental curses reflecting the karmic consequences and inescapable ties that result from our actions, cause and effect. And so we get negative results in our lives, and frequently we forget, but yeah, we were the angels that lusted after results, that lusted after something that wasn't for our highest good, and we bound together to go get this thing within our own minds, and then we fell asleep to the fact that we did that and said, why is this happening to me? Then they all swore together and bound themselves by mutual curses. There were 200 of them in total, and they descended in the days of Jared on the summit of Mount Hermon. They called it Mount Hermon because they swore and bound themselves with mutual curses there. So when the angels descend to Mount Hermon, this symbolizes the point where spirit fully commits to incarnation, or fully commits to binding itself to the earth plane. And the number and the act of swearing represent the magnitude and seriousness of this decision that we make for ourselves. Not that we made in the past, but that we make in present time. Spirit binding itself to matter with all its attendant limitations and consequences. And then it lists all the names of the leaders. And the naming of the leader, that's for that verse 6 is just giving a bunch of challenging to pronounce names. The naming of these leaders is simply a representation of the individuation of spiritual principles or archetypes as they manifest in the world, not necessarily negatively, good, bad, indifferent. When an archetype manifests in physical world, it becomes very individualized. So each name, you could see it as a unique aspect of consciousness or force that plays a role in the unfolding of the drama of spirit in matter. And all the others with them took wives for themselves, each choosing one, and they began to unite with them and defile themselves with them. So the union, the fusion of spirit and matter results in the loss of the original powers of spirit. The purity of spirit and its inherent powers are seemingly lost, at least temporarily, when they take wives from the earth. And again, this represents the principle of gender. The decision is the masculine principle, right? And then when we impress our thought upon the substance, which is the wife, which is the feminine principle, we get what we get. And that's coming next. It's coming soon. So this magical concept that immersion in materiality can obscure or corrupt one's higher nature. It has the potential to do that. Okay, verse 8, and they taught them charms, enchantments, the cutting of roots, and introduced them to plants. So the imparting of knowledge. These charms, enchantments, plant lore symbolize the transmission of esoteric occult wisdom and knowledge, and the awakening of latent powers within humanity. And that in and of itself is neither good nor bad, positive or negative, but this knowledge is frequently misused by humanity. And that's what leads to the imbalance and the disharmony that we have frequently in the world, is not only our creativity that we used against ourselves, but the wisdom and the knowledge that we have used against ourselves. And the women became pregnant and gave birth to great giants, whose height was 3,000 cubits. These giants consumed all mankind's resources. When man could know... Oops, sorry, hang on. I just lost it here. Sorry about that. Let's do that again. What happened to my... Okay, here we go. And the women became pregnant and gave birth to great giants, whose height was 3,000 cubits. These giants consumed all mankind's resources. When man could no longer sustain them, the giants turned against them and started devouring humanity. I'm so sorry. Just a moment, please. Okay. So, the giants are the consequences of the union of spirit and matter, the union of impressing the desires upon the spiritual substance, which then manifests into reality. Now, if we're impressing the will of the infinite onto the spiritual substance, then we are using our creativity in a way that's sustainable and which creates joy and happiness and everything that we want. But when we are using our ability to impress ego lusts onto the screen of space, then we get these giants that they said were 3,000 cubits. So what a cubit is like the length of a forearm. So 3,000 of those is how big they were. And this is just a symbol of how big the consequences are of our thoughts. We don't realize how powerful we are. And so when we have big problems in our lives, we don't recognize that we have the power not only to create those big problems and sustain those big problems and conspire to, again, remember, conspiring to have those things happen. Not one angel did it by themselves. They conspired to do it, and we conspire with other consciousnesses to have these things happen in our lives. But then we divorce ourselves from our own responsibility and say, oh, I can't believe all these big problems. What's happening? I don't understand it. And we never question how it was that we impregnated the wives of man, how we impregnated the spiritual substance of the divine, or Shekinah, in order to have these things occur in our lives. And that's the unforgivable sin from the New Testament. The only sin that's unforgivable is the sin against the Holy Spirit. And what that means is not that if you do this, that you're going to hell. It means that you can't undo the consequences of your own thinking. You can't undo that. It's just, you're going to have to deal with the consequences unless you're able to get some kind of intervention, which is what a lot of magic is involved with, is asking for an intervention for our own mistakes. So these giants, the consequences of this union, and it manifests as, think of the giants meaning overwhelmingness, overwhelming desires, overwhelming appetites, overwhelming creations that outgrow their original purpose and thus become destructive, similar to Frankenstein's monster. And then it turns and goes against us. So the warning that unchecked power and the dangers of excess here will always have a consequence. Use up our resources and then come back to attack us. They also began to sin against birds, beasts, reptiles, and fish, and eat one another's flesh and drink the blood. Then the earth brought accusations against the lawless ones. So this represents the corruption and disharmony that arise when our own spiritual principles are misapplied to the material world. It's a similar thing as the previous verse, except for now it's talking about birds, beasts, reptiles, and fish. So all of the different, you could think of it as all the different signs of the zodiac, not necessarily individual creatures that were defiled, but the ideas. These are ideas that were co-opted and misappropriated by the ego mind. And to eat the flesh, eat one another's flesh, and drink the blood, the cannibalistic nature of the ego. The ego always eats itself. It always destroys itself, but not until it destroys everything else around it, because it is the thought form of self-destruction. And when the earth brings accusations against the lawless ones, it means you can only take this so far. Even at your worst, you can only take it so far, and then something will always step in. You're always going to hit an end to this. So that's good news, that even if you don't change the way you think, even if you don't change the way you perceive things, even if you don't stop miscreating over and over again, you will get to a point where the universe will say, okay, that's enough, no more. And you will ultimately find relief. You will ultimately find the enlightenment. But in magic, especially angel magic and the types of magic that are taught from the points of view of the Book of Enoch, the idea of it is initiation to cut through all the time that it would normally take to reach that enlightenment, to reach that freedom from these egoic tendencies, and to get there quickly. Okay, and Azazel taught men to make swords, knives, shields, breastplates, and revealed to them the metals of the earth and how to work with them, along with bracelets, ornaments, and the use of antimony, the beautifying of eyelids, all kinds of precious stones, and coloring agents. So Azazel's teachings are a symbol of the awakening of both technological and aesthetic knowledge. And these are wonderful things. And these tools, though, can be used for both good or evil. They can be used for creative purposes or destructive purposes. It's a double-edged sword of all. Basically, they're talking about how Azazel taught civilization. And all forms of civilization are a double-edged sword, because they do carry with them the power to create the power to shape the world, but also to harm and to distract and to keep large swaths of population down in order for a small percentage of population to thrive. So it's a very powerful symbol that we got all of this wonderful occult knowledge from Azazel, but we didn't necessarily get the understanding on how to use it for the good of all. And much godlessness arose, and they committed fornication, became led astray, and corrupted themselves in all their ways. So this is the symbol of losing touch with our divine source. We're losing touch with our purpose, our function, why we're here. We're not here just to satisfy our ego lusts. That's not why we were created. In fact, ego lusts aren't real. They are the ultimate distraction. They don't really exist. This is all part of a nightmare that we concoct. And the more we concoct it, the more we get entranced by it. And that's the curse of having freedom of choice and being able to choose our own thoughts, choose use our creativity however we want to. Now, when spiritual awareness thus is eclipsed by these pursuits, confusion and moral decay are the outcome of that. But like we said before, you can only take it so far. Ultimately, everybody's going to wake up to the fact that none of this is happening, or that none of this ever happened, and that we're all fine. But in the meantime, we are at liberty to go as far into this nightmare as we choose. Semyaza taught enchantments and root cutting. Armoros taught how to resolve enchantments. Barakiel taught astrology. Kokabel taught constellations. Ezekiel, it's not Ezekiel, it's Ezekiel, taught the knowledge of clouds. Arakiel taught the signs of the earth, Shamsiel taught the signs of the sun, and Sariel taught the course of the moon. So the dissemination here of all of this specialized knowledge is a reflection of how human consciousness unfolds and develops in regards to arts and sciences. All of the technology of the human human ingenuity that creates and creates and creates, sometimes wonderfully and sometimes not so wonderfully. And each of these teachings can be seen as a metaphor for the awakening of the different faculties of perception and understanding, and presenting us with more opportunity for pride and misuse. As men perished, they cried out. Their cries reached heaven. So, it's so typical. We did all of this, and then we said, what's wrong? How come this is happening to us? Help, help, which is fine. When we need the help is always available to us. But as wise magi, our goal is to start with the help, to start with the connection to our true power, to the infinite, so that we are always guided and that we don't have to undo so many mistakes, that we're guided to avoid the mistakes to begin with. Either way, we will be fine. So the suffering and the loss that resulted from the misuse of our spiritual gifts leads to a collective yearning for redemption. And you can see that frequently, that we're even in various civilizations, various populations, as a culture becomes increasingly corrupt, there is a rising up usually against that corruption eventually from the group mind. And this is a good thing, because then it's the group mind starts to understand that it's more than just a collection of egos, that a lot of what has been happening needs to be corrected. And the only way for us to do that is to cry out, is to rise up and call for restoration and balance one way or another. Now, in the history of the world, these risings and fallings of different civilizations are also symbolic to the risings and fallings of the civilizations within each of our consciousness. And our goal as magi is to really stay above the fray, so that we're not going back and forth so much with that law of polarity, that we aren't having our pendulum swing back and forth anymore, that we are staying above the fray, and that we are listening to guidance so that we know what to do before we have to ask for help to correct what we did. So we have 14 verses. So the main themes of each verse. Verse 1 was the emergence of potential, the birth of beauty and creativity in matter. Verse 2 was the descent of spirit into matter and the temptation of the divine by the material. Verse 3 was dealing with the awareness of consequence and the risk of spiritual fall. Number 4 was the binding of spirit into matter and karmic consciousness. That it was the birth of karma, basically, which is a law that we are ultimately not bound to, by the way. We are bound to the spiritual laws only of grace, but to the degree that we allow ourselves to believe that our good can only come from this world, then we are bound to the laws of this world. But when we detach ourselves from our need to be gratified only by this world, we are then bound only to the laws of grace. Number 5, the commitment to incarnation, the magnitude of descent, the commitment to being and feeling separate. Number 6, the individuation of all the different spiritual archetypes. 7, the fusion of spirit and matter and the loss of our memory of who we were. Number 8 was the transmission of esoteric and occult knowledge and the awakening of our latent powers, which was a gift to us because this is how we were able to then start to awaken from the mistakes. The unchecked creation, number 9 was unchecked creation and destructive consequences of the imbalances. And number 10, corruption of natural order and disharmony with the earth and the earth rebelling against us. Number 11, technological and aesthetic knowledge and the duality of using that knowledge for creation or destruction. Number 12 was the loss of spiritual awareness and moral decay. Number 13 dealt with the awakening of our faculties and the development of arts and sciences, both for our well-being and also sometimes to our detriment. Number 14 was the suffering and yearning for redemption and the return to source. And again, what the esoteric knowledge will teach us, what the true occult knowledge will teach us, is to listen to that inner guidance so that we get to number 14 first, that we yearn for the redemption and return to source first so that we can cut through all of the drama. And that is chapter 3 of the first book of Enoch on the fallen angels. And we don't have time to go through chapter 4, so we'll just end it here. So thank you so much for spending this time with me, and we will continue with chapter 4 next time. Blessed be. Let's see if we have any questions. We do not. Okay, so I hope to see everybody over on our premiere that's happening in just 6 minutes from now. And before I forget, I should probably make sure that that's linked. Hold on, let me just make sure that I remembered to link that. So that way what you can do is you can just wait to the end of the exit music and it will take you right to that premiere watch page. Let me see if I can. Oh, yes, I did. Okay, so I will see you over at the premiere. Thank you so much to the amazing moderators. Today we had the lovely Minerva, the lovely I Am Her Eminence, and the lovely Dre. And we'll see you all in a few minutes. Until next time, blessed be.